Helix.
John, at the beginning of this semester, you received an email from your AV coordinator in your school of law asking if you wanted to opt out of your course being recorded. I'd love for you to walk us through the pros, the cons that you debated in your head.
Let me just caveat all this by saying, of course, this was the pre-pandemic world when it was still reasonable to expect everyone to show up physically in the same classroom. So I'll mention this is a small course, roughly 25 students. It's a very discussion-oriented course with lots of student participation. And I did opt out. Certainly, I'm highly sympathetic to the argument, for example, if a student is unable to attend class for any number of completely legitimate reasons, then obviously there's a benefit if that student can simply go back and watch the recording.
And yet you decided not to. Help us understand the student privacy concerns that may be overlooked too often when we think about course recordings.
To me, there's almost an implicit assumption that when you're in these classroom discussions, that you're not broadcasting them to the world. And of course, to be fair, universities that record classes don't tend to broadcast them to the world. But the fact remains that a recorded conversation is one, I think, that all of us would approach somewhat differently and more carefully than one that isn't recorded, simply because there's more of a risk of things being taken out of context. And it's just the other issues that you want students to be free to explore their thoughts, to sort of start and stop, to think, hey, how about this? No, on second thought, that's a bad idea. How about that? And I just think that it chills conversation in a classroom if everybody knows that every word they say is going to be recorded.
Should colleges think about this from the other standpoint? If a professor gets accused of something, hate speech, for example, do they maybe want to lean on the side of let's just record everything to make sure that we can protect our students and discipline our faculty if necessary?
There certainly is an argument, and by the way, it doesn't have to be simply be a professor. Anybody in the classroom could say something that is potentially controversial and leads to some sort of downstream consequences where it becomes of interest to know what was actually said. But the question is, does that sort of forensic record keeping more than outweigh the value of having spontaneous, unrecorded classroom discussion? And I guess for me, I still fall on the side of believing that they give students more freedom to explore and think.